On July 20th of this year, Scott Herr vanished off this property while he was working. That day, he was actually working on a playhouse type, clubhouse type thing for the owner's daughter. They also have a firewood business over here, and Scott was known to, cut firewood for them, work on random projects around the property. And around lunchtime, Scott, he went on his break. He called his mom, left her a funny voicemail, joking around. Hey, mom, you didn't answer. What the heck? You got abducted by aliens, mom. And that was the last time anyone ever heard from him. Now, the owner's son allegedly saw Scott from across the property walk towards this flag down this driveway. And that was the last time anyone's ever seen him or heard from him, any sights on him. And this gentleman just up and vanished. Now, after doing a little bit of digging, a little bit of research, Scott was actually working on this property to earn some money to fund a trip to go up to Seattle and work with his uncle. And he was pretty excited about this new opportunity. The uncle had a new project that he was working on, and Scott was supposed to get brought on with that, and they was supposed to make some pretty good money. So Scott was down here working on this property, working for this nice gentleman out here, trying to fund the trip to get up to Seattle, to where the rest of his family's at, and work for the uncle for an unknown amount of time. Now, the day of Scott's disappearance, it sounds like his truck was actually broken down or having issues that day. So Scott took his mother's car to work, and his mother was actually out of town visiting family, I believe in Seattle at the time. Anyway, so he drove the mother's car to work in this area. We're in Idlewild, California. He took the mother's car to work in this area and parked it over here under a tree, kind of at the end of this driveway. And he went about his business just like a normal work day. Nobody knows anything out of the ordinary. The only thing he did was he left the job site at some point and went down to a gas station and allegedly purchased some Gatorades, which we had the mother check her credit card history, and that checks out. There is two different charges for $3.45, and nothing seemed weird or anything like that. Scott supposedly went to his lunch and technically just never came back. So this just isn't making any sense whatsoever. Scott was working on this property to earn some money to fund a trip so he can go work with his uncle up in Seattle on a project that allegedly was supposed to pay pretty dang good. So Scott was very, very excited about this new opportunity with his uncle. And like I said, he was coming out here trying to earn some money just to fund the trip. So it doesn't make any sense why he may have possibly just walked off the property, never come back, have no communication with anything. Later that evening, after Scott didn't return back to work, the landowner walked out and realized that, hey, Scott's car is still here. He thought, maybe Scott just left early, didn't say anything about it, he'd be back the next day. Well, after walking around the side, because the owner was actually busy with work that day, he didn't think nothing of it. And after he walked over and noticed that the car was still there, he opened the passenger side of that car, the passenger door of that car, and looked inside of it. And he found Scott's cell phones inside of the vehicle. And that's right, I said cell phones. Allegedly, there was possibly two cell phones inside the mother's vehicle that were owned by Scott. And Scott had over the years been battling with drug use. And he had been in and out of rehab. He was trying to better his life, do what's right in life, and just do good in life. Well, when Scott went missing, allegedly he might have been using again. And his his paraphernalia was actually found in the glove box of that car, which doesn't make any sense because anybody that is using or might have some kind of addiction, if they plan on leaving a property, if they plan on going somewhere, they are not going to leave that item, leave those things in that vehicle. If you're an alcoholic and you're going to walk off, you're not going to leave your cold beer. If you're a pothead, you're going to walk off, you're not going to leave your pot inside that vehicle. You're going to take it with you if you plan on leaving for long term. So that's where my suspicions get raised. However, another thing I want to bring up is I went through the town of Idlewild. I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but another thing I want to bring up is while I was in Idlewild and Mountain Center asking around, I couldn't help but notice there is numerous missing persons posters in these businesses, in these gas stations, in these restaurants. This whole area, for some reason, is plagued with multiple missing persons. I went around, I asked locals today, I got an interview with one of them. She didn't want to be on camera, but she was willing to talk on the microphone. And I got an interview with one of them, and she was telling me that she doesn't see any, law enforcement patrolling the area, search and rescue. There's no FBI investigations that's been coming up here. She doesn't see anything out of the ordinary, except for that there's all these missing persons posters all over the place, that there's all these missing persons being reported on the news. Just a couple years ago, there were 6 missing persons that were reported in a short period of time. If you go online, I encourage you, pause this video, go online, look up missing persons in Idlewild, California, and you're going to be amazed, just like I was. Why is there so many missing persons out here? What's going on? Why is there no heavy presence of law enforcement? Now, I do want to say that the sheriff's department, it sounds like they've been very helpful. They came out here, had multiple search parties, had helicopters. I think they had hounds come out and possibly sniff the area, sniff this property, came out, questioned a few people, and at the end of the day, they have had no leads. They have absolutely no leads right now, and it's been just over 2 months. We're gonna pause this and show you the interview. So supposedly this is where he came and bought a Gatorade, allegedly, but he spent $3.49 on a credit card. And we're gonna ring up a Gatorade ourselves, and we're gonna talk to an employee here. Now, were you aware that Scott had come in here before he went missing that day?
No, I was not.
Have you had any law enforcement come down and speak to you, or hear of any employees, or maybe the owner being talked to and pull camera footage?
Not to my knowledge, and I know most of what goes on around here.
Okay. Now, what about missing persons? Do you know about any other missing persons in the area?
Yeah, actually, it's a little alarming. We've got 2 other posters up currently. I've been working here a year and a half, and I think I've seen a total of 6 missing people.
Oh, wow. In a year and a half?
In a year and a half, and this is a really small community, so it's been kind of scary. I meet a lot of customers every day, and the locals are starting to talk that we're wondering if there's a serial killer or something on the loose. I mean, it's not something to laugh about, but it's scary.
Yeah, that is scary. I'm staying 40 minutes that way because I don't want to be up here in a high concentration area where there's a lot of missing people.
Right.
Now, given the high concentration of missing persons in the area, do you see a heavier presence from law enforcement, search and rescue on a daily basis, or maybe even the FBI getting involved? Because this would be definitely an area where it's like a hotspot of missing persons. So don't you think that there'd be heavier law enforcement presence?
The locals talk about it all the time. We wonder what is going on.
Being a local, how do you feel about that? That there's no higher presence?
Well, a few months ago, I moved from here all the way down.
But you moved out of the area, but you work
out
up
of the
here
area. Yeah, I was feeling really uncomfortable.
The state of California has over 3,000 unsolved missing persons case at this time. It is the #1 state. It has the highest number of missing persons in the entire United States of America. And it might not have the highest per capita. California is also the heaviest populated state, the highest population. About 7 people out of every 100,000 that live in the state go missing each year. So our missing rate is 7 per 100,000. Now, 7 people in 100,000, that's a small number, right? Well, when you're talking about humans, 1 out of 1 million is too many. There's a lot of drug trafficking. There's a lot of sex trafficking. There's a lot of crime that comes up through this area because it comes down from our southern borders, and this is kind of a hot spot where a lot of things come through. And we're wondering, what happened in these beautiful mountains? Why is there so many people? What's going on? And as always, guys, another episode of Dad's Gone Live. Thanks for watching.